Welcome to the New England Quilt Museum, the showplace for American quilts. We're a small museum situated in downtown Lowell, steps away from shopping, dining, and other historical museums. The New England Quilt Museum is located 25 miles from the outskirts of Boston. It is easily accessible from major automotive routes as well as the commuter rail. The mission of the New England Quilt Museum is to study quilts and the individuals who designed and created them. The museum was founded in 1987 by the New England Quilters Guild. The New England Quilters Guild wanted to establish a museum dedicated to quilts, and Lowell was a perfect site for such an institution. It was the first location in New England where a female workforce produced cotton that became one of the mainstays of early American industrial culture. The building that houses the museum was the former Lowell Institute for Savings Bank. The bank was built in the early 1800s and was known to house the savings of many mill workers. The building was renovated and currently houses the museum's 2 galleries, gift shop, library, offices, and storage space. The museum houses a collection of roughly 150 quilts, ranging from pieces created in the late 1700s to mid-19th century to quilts made by today's leading quilt makers. There is always a selection of the museum's permanent collection of quilts on view. During any visit, you will see at least 20 pieces from the permanent collection on display in galleries, period rooms, and study storage cases, as well as one of 5 special exhibits of quilts displayed throughout the year. In 1991, collector Gail Binney Stiles and her father Edwin Binney Winslow donated 33 quilts from their premier collection to the museum. This donation included an array of selected blue and white quilts from the 1880s, visually dynamic silk quilts, and Amish quilts featuring bold plains and colors and large abstract patterns. The museum also houses intricately pieced quilts from the early 19th century, 4-post bed quilts made in the early 1800s, beautiful applique quilts from the 1850s, and gorgeous crazy quilts made in the late 1800s featuring silks, satins, and fanciful embroidered embellishments. Some of the most interesting quilts in the museum's collection of quilts made in the 1800s were not necessarily made by women of wealth and leisure time, but by ordinary working women. This is especially true of a selection of quilts made by a Portuguese mill worker who worked in the Lowell's boot mills. Teresa Mello immigrated to the United States as a young woman and worked in the mill as a weaver, working 13-hour shifts. She spent her evenings making quilts for her family. 3 of her quilts were donated by her family to the museum. They are made of the same fabrics Teresa Mello wove in the mill. The museum also houses a number of contemporary quilts made by renowned artists. This collection of contemporary quilts grows by at least 1 quilt annually. Archipelago by Nancy Halperin, part of the museum's permanent collection, is the only piece created by this artist owned by a museum in the United States. The permanent collection also houses 2 works by Ruth McDowell, including Bloodroot. Bloodroot was a revolutionary quilt when it was introduced in 1986. It features overgrown flowers and is an enormous 2-sided quilt that fills an entire room. The museum has quilts by many other leading New England contemporary artists including Judy Becker, Rhoda Cohen, Beatrice Grayson, and Natasha Kempers-Cullen, to name a few. The New England Quilt Museum offers a variety of ongoing programs and classes. Thursdays, patrons are invited to join the Brown Bag Lunch program and enjoy a demonstration while eating lunch. Partake in the Finished Festival, where you receive help and inspiration in completing your unfinished quilt. Come hear expert quilters talk about their styles, techniques, and quilts during special artist lectures. Author readings are also offered on quilt-related books. On the 3rd Friday of every month, take part in the Massachusetts Quilt Documentation Project at the museum. Bring in your antique quilt to be measured, photographed, dated, and evaluated. The records taken will become part of the permanent history of Massachusetts quilts. So far, over 3,000 quilts have been documented. This is another way the museum is working to preserve America's quilt history. The museum also offers a number of workshops and classes. Workshops are held for all levels of quilters, from beginners to expert quilters. Each year, a summer camp is also offered for children who want to learn quilting. The museum is also very active in Lowell's community endeavors. Programs are run for the youth at Girls Inc., for the seniors, and in conjunction with local museums. Programs are offered to school groups either by tours of the museum or by a member of the museum staff visiting the classroom with a presentation. Demonstrations and slideshow presentations are also arranged for guilds and groups. On the first Saturday of every month, there is a curatorial tour offered to the public. Tours are also offered to the special exhibits presented throughout the year. Patrons are encouraged to support the museum by becoming a New England Quilt Museum member. Members receive free admission to the museum, discounts on workshops, special invitations to receptions, lectures, and special events. All proceeds raised by membership go to continuing the museum's mission of preserving and interpreting American quilt making, past and present. Our museum shop features quilted items made by members as well as community quilt makers. There is a great selection of how-to books, history books, quilt-making products, and quilt-related products designed for the quilt enthusiast. The library in the museum has one of the most extensive collections of quilters' books, how-to books, and periodicals, as well as quilting software and computers for further research. The public is welcome to schedule an appointment to come in and use the library. Members are welcome to use the library as well as check out books and periodicals. The New England Quilt Museum depends heavily upon the involvement of volunteers. The library is staffed entirely by volunteers. They also work in the shop, white glove in the galleries, and assist with the installation of exhibits. The museum also depends upon the support of quilt guilds across the country to achieve its mission to educate and display quilts for all to see. Please consider supporting the museum with a donation from your guild or by giving a donation to our endowment. The museum's endowment ensures the collection will continue to hang in the museum's galleries for future generations. After your visit to the New England Quilt Museum, take a walk through Lowell's cobblestone streets. The museum is located in the heart of downtown Lowell, across the street from the Revolving Museum and the Trolley Museum. Enjoy a visit to any number of art galleries, historical sites, shops, or cultural diverse eateries that line the historic town center. It's affordable, close to Boston, and full of ample parking. Please come visit and spend the day. We're sure you will not be disappointed.